So before we start understanding these modules for request routing, it is very important to learn and understand the concept. Theoretical knowledge is required a lot because the implementation part only comes to you. You can understand only that one when you understand the theory about each module and how we can use and where we can use, right? So Apache HTTP server supports various modules for routing, proxying, clustering, failover, and load balancing. So these are the main terms um, we'll be repeating again and again. So it supports various modules for different mechanisms. So for failover, for load balancing, clustering, proxying, routing, and below is a breakdown of most commonly used modules, their use cases, examples, and comparisons to decide the most efficient module based on various scenarios. So I have added different scenarios and different modules you can use based on the scenario, right? So each module we will understand their use cases with example and what are the pros and cons. And finally, we will see comparison to decide which is most efficient for our scenario. So the first one, mod proxy. It is a general purpose proxy module. It is used for forwarding HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and AJP requests to backend servers. So proxying the request, general purpose. Simply, you can just forward the request. Why? Because mod proxy, if you want to use Apache as a reverse proxy, you need to install mod proxy. So here it is working as a reverse proxy. And protocols supported, these are the protocols. And yes, AJP, when you're configuring the cluster, and FTP, file transfer protocol, if your application contains some files to download, and both HTTP and HTTPS are used in this mod proxy. Now, the use case, it forwards the HTTP request from Apache to backend application, whether it is Tomcat or Jboss, in which file you will configure httpd.conf, right? So this is a default location for CentOS or RHEL. But yeah, this one, if you are using per site configuration, meaning you can go to this location, etc Apache 2 sites available, and you can create different configuration files for different applications. This can also be done. So how it works, mod proxy. So we have Apache HTTP server with mod proxy. Client or API sends the request, whether HTTP or HTTPS. So this will use the mod proxy rules to proxy pass the request to backend application server, and it receives the response and sends the response back to the client. Same for backend app server 2. So how it is sending for these two based on the configuration. So for app, it is sending to one application server, and you can add multiple like app 1, app 2. So for app 1, app server 1, app 2, app server 2. So this is simple proxy pass. And if you want to use the load balancer, I mean, you have a cluster in the backend and you want to balance the load, then you need to load Apache with mod proxy and mod proxy balancer. Why? To work with balancer member and define the load balancing rules you need to load mod proxy attached by balancer. So what happens here? Based on the configuration, you will define, you will proxy pass to the application context to balancer, that is cluster, and reverse proxy pass reverse same. And you will define the balancer here and how many balancer members are participating here. And you will define a route node 1, node 2. You can also enable sticky session and LB method by request. So proxy preserve host. So this is one parameter. It forwards original host header to backend. So this is useful when Jboss or Tomcat needs to know where exactly the request is coming from. And usually, for SSL termination, if you have implemented, what Apache will do, it will intercept the request, it will extract the header, decrypts it, and sends the request to backend if it is SSL termination. So if you uh, enable this one, proxy preserve host, it will not do any changes to the host header. It will directly send the request back to the backend application server. Balance member each backend server with optional route used for sticky session. Sticky session is equal to JSession ID. It enables sticky session based on cookie. So this cookie is generated by your backend application server. LB method by request, load balancing strategy. This is a strategy. It also supports by traffic and by busyness, meaning busyness is a backend application server's uh, busyness. So whichever the server is less busy, it will send the request to that backend application server. By requests means, yeah, we will see that in a while. By traffic, by requests, by business, and there is one more thing. We will see that in a while. So let us understand this. So you have loaded this mod proxy and mod proxy balancer, and it uses the logic, whatever you have mentioned under defined under app cluster. So two members with two routes. Why route is used for sticky sessions? So the first request from the client has gone to one server, and if the sticky session is enabled, and the next subsequent request will be sent to the same server, not the other server. It will not be load balanced. Your Apache will not send the other request from the same client to app server 2. Why? Yes, the session stickiness is very important because if it is sending to another server, it needs to create another thread, another, it uses the system resources. So in order to avoid that, sticky session is enabled, right? So we will discuss the sticky sessions and session replication in detail. So yeah, sending the request to the balancer member 1. Once the response is generated, it is sent back to the client, and the second request is sent to balancer member 2. So you can control how these requests are load balanced to the backend application servers. Like whether it is based on number of requests, like you can define first 10 requests go to app server 1, second 10 requests goes to app server 2. So this is by request. Why busyness? Okay, whichever server is busy, for that, the new request will not be sent. It will be sent to the server which is less busy. So Apache keeps track of all the requests. And by traffic, so if there is huge traffic, it will distribute the load fair share. Fairly, it will share the load balancing, I mean, the connections, the requests. So, yeah, what are the pros? Easy to configure. So, this is the configuration. Simple, very simple. Simple general purpose module and supports these all protocols compatible with mod proxy balancer and mod proxy AJP. So, AJP, you can also configure AJP. Cons, basic failover without session stickiness requires helper modules. So if you want to